looked for the key words, sacred geometry. I looked for the key words, Merkaba, and the key word, Drunvalo, Melchizedek. And there were just a few examples on the internet. Now there are millions. But of course, that's true for many things. I'd like to mention a little bit of something about sacred geometry. My personal path was to connect with a course that Drunvalo had created that was called the Flower of Life. And in taking that course and gaining the understanding of sacred geometry, this is, for me personally, what happened when I had the understanding that sacred geometry was represented in all of life and was absolutely viewable through nature. My left brain, for perhaps the first time in this life, understood the unity of all life. And in the moment that it did, a pathway opened between the left and the right. The right never had a problem with that. The left brain was saying, oh, come on. Can this be true? True? So, yes, it can. And the moment there was agreement, this was a physical effect that happened. There was a pathway that opened from here and it went down to here. And it opened a place for all of the information I had been looking at, studying. I had been studying metaphysics since the age of 19. I had all kinds of information. But it didn't have a home until it entered the heart. And that's been my journey. And so, I became a teacher of the Flower of Life. I taught that workshop for 13 years until Drunvalo. During that time, I worked closely with him. The first time I brought him to Canada, it was to Banff Center. We did a workshop at Banff Center in 2000, and there were others a number of times in Canada. We worked closely, and during that time, I was part of a group of people that kept not only doing the work that was originally taught in the Flower of Life, we were constantly experimenting. How can we bring this work so that it manifested in a different way? Meaning, how could we bring it into the heart so that the work that was being done largely from the mind could then be done from the heart? Drunvalo wrote this book in 2002. I think it was released in 2003. And through that time, there was much experimenting with the heart. That's an image of one of your glands, an endocrine gland, that exists in a very specific place on your body. You have, each of you has a universal heart chakra. Those of you, I know there are people here who are acupuncturists and study Chinese medicine. They know this place in Chinese medicine as Ren 17. And so, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, if you simply take your finger and drop it down to the place where there's a little depression at the bottom of your sternum, that's your universal heart chakra. Once you have that, once you've located that, you take your hand and put the width of your hand just above that, in the place where your finger touches above that is the personal heart chakra, right there. That's where the thymus is. So what? So see, that's sacred geometry. Your body is an amazing measurement tool. The width of your hand becomes a key measurement. In Chinese medicine, the width of your thumb is the measuring stick. The width of your hand is another. The width of your arm is another. It's all sacred geometry. So the thymus, this is the place where the trauma is stored, emotional trauma. Whatever has happened to you throughout your life, when it's unresolved, it has a place where it's stored, and that is the thymus. That may seem like, gee whiz, that's terrible. It's also saved your butt over and over again. The location of this, just a hand's width above your heart, isn't a mistake. Because there's another doorway just below the heart. Same thing, the width of your hand below. And what is that? That's the solar plexus. And this is the gateway that keeps the unresolved issues of safety. The part that is not resolved, it protects the heart so that in either direction, if things come in before you have resolution and some understanding, then the heart is protecting against that. There is the possibility, perhaps you know people who have forced chakras open. When you do, you are inviting disaster. So, throughout the ages, in mystery schools, in Chinese medicine, in Ayurvedic medicine, this knowledge was passed on, and it continues to be passed on. The heart protects itself, and it's waiting for the moment that you're ready to feel safe. And when you do, that opens a doorway. The heart is waiting for each of us to have that moment of safety so that it can do something very special. Doubt and fear can't travel the road of the heart if that's what you're holding on to. So here we have the same kind of flow chart, but this time for the heart. And this gets very interesting. First of all, notice that the heart doesn't have any division. Sure, the physical heart has chambers, all of that. But now we're connecting to the energy of the heart. And so what I'm going to explain to you as we proceed is that the heart is one of the places, and it is actually the first one that leads us into unity. So there is no division in the heart, at least not when we find our way into the place where we have absolute safety. The heart doesn't use thoughts for creation. The heart uses dreams and images. Typically, it is easier for the feminine side of life to understand that. But it's for all of us, masculine, feminine. Let's face it, we're not just male and female, we are all both. And it is that journey of bringing the masculine and feminine together in ourselves that opens the door to safety. Some of the things that are happening in the world in these days, I believe, are not. It's not happening by mistake. There are those who understand this. And right now, we have a certain part of humanity that is in deep fear, deep fear. And they're doing things from the mind that are very destructive. So anyway, dreams and images. All of those things can begin to manifest into the world of creation through the energy of emotions and feelings. Dreams and images, you don't have to apply any energy to that. They come and they go. But when, let's say, a dream or an image comes in that all of a sudden inspires you, you bring energy to that. That's emotion and feeling. Do you understand that that's where the power comes from? Even in the way of using the brain, we brought emotion in, right? In that first flow chart. Emotions and feelings. Now, that's the power, the energy. Now, after that, when you're creating from the heart, yes, you can bring attention and intention in just as we did from the mind, or not. You see the difference? In the world of the heart, it's absolutely possible to create without having any attention or intention. You can just give it to God. And the heart will continue to create. Or not. You can bring attention and intention, and that's fine too. In the world of the heart, that intention and attention is pure. It's in unity. It's not divided. It's not polarized. And this is the hope. This is the way out. Now, there's something at the bottom that will be very difficult to understand with a lot more information and a lot more training. And that is the tip of the tongue and alpha waves. That's a description of a magic moment when you start entering the world of the heart, and the previous relationship between the mind and the heart has been that the mind is trying to rule everything. And the mind, as a rule, is deathly afraid of the heart. Because it feels like if all of a sudden we just allow the heart to rule, where am I going to go? I'll tell you a little story about that. In a previous age, there were people in Egypt who understood the technology of taking the human body after death and preparing it for resurrection. That was called mummification. So, you have the person who died, and they were relatively high up in the structure, the cultural structure. And it was felt that the body should be preserved. So for the moment of resurrection, which leads to ascension, it's understood in many circles that the body is an absolutely critical component to ascension. And to just drop the body after death, well, hey, if however many of you are or have been a Christian, you understand that concept. Isn't that what Christ represented? Isn't that the journey that he proved? After death, he came back for the body, and then he ascended. And that's not the only culture that understands this. Okay, so the Egyptians were taking the mummy and they'd open them up, they'd embalm them. They'd embalm all of the organs. They'd take them out, preserve them carefully, and before they wrapped the mummy up, they put 2 of those organs back in the body. Some of you know which 2. The heart, and the other, the sexual organs. Why? Because those are the 2 primary organs for creating from the heart. They understood that. All of the other organs were put in jars and stored with the body, but not inside, outside, as part of the preservation. Put in the same tomb, except one. Which one? The brain. What did they do with the brain? They threw it away. Feel that. Okay, first time I heard that, I'll tell you my experience. You what? That's my brain speaking. You threw it away? That's trauma. It's my feeling that as part of that process, there are many of us whose brain said, never again will you throw me away. So, this war that's been going on in the Middle East, in India, anywhere you can pick is part of that war between the brain and the heart. How do we create peace? This is a saying from the Upanishads, and I discovered this in 1997, or pardon me, in 2002. The moment I did, I sent this to Drunvalo, and in the very front of that book, this was inserted in the book because the book had been sent to the printers the day before I sent this message. If someone says to you, in the fortified city of the imperishable, our body, there is a lotus, and in this lotus a tiny space. What does it contain that we should desire to know it? You must reply. As vast as this space without is, the tiny space within your heart. Heaven and earth are found in it, fire and air, sun and moon, lightning and the constellations. Whatever belongs to you here below and all that doesn't, all of this is gathered in that tiny space within your heart. This is the place within each of us that lives in unity. It is there in each of you now. And it remains to be discovered. And it is discoverable. It is approachable. It is waiting. When you come to that sense of safety within yourself, you have opened the door to that tiny space. When that door is opened, you can now create from that place. When you create from that place, you are creating in unity. There is no opposite. And this is the way out. There's only one way that this can be proven. And that's for you, each one, to prove it to themselves. Any journey into something that is worthwhile and sustainable is a journey that requires certain elements to even begin. typically the first one is faith, because faith precedes trust. Trust is absolute. It's unconditional. Faith is a concept that leads to trust. And so, if trust isn't something that you can have as you begin the journey, then you have faith. Faith in yourself, that you are worth the outcome. That's all that's required. Once starting on this journey, you will find the heart. You'll enter first what's called the sacred space of the heart. That's the name of this book that was passed around. From the sacred space of the heart, you now have accessed the pathway to the tiny space. The tiny space is vast, just as this talks about. Everything is contained within it. It is the great void, as above, so below, as within, so without. If the great void is something out there, it must be something in here. Okay. So, as part of the men's group, we had a great discussion a few weeks ago on water. And the person who introduced the discussion to our group talked about this wonderful woman named Veda Austin, who has written a book that I highly recommend. It's called The Secret Intelligence of Water. She created a way of connecting to water so that you could speak with each other through images. And water responds and replies in ways that are hard to imagine. Why? Because it comes from the heart. And she's teaching people how to do that all over. And she uses a practice that she developed called crystallography. So Veda's a dear friend and a beautiful woman. And I highly recommend. Why do we seek out books like this and knowledge like this? Why do we do that? Because they speak to the heart. We're looking for safety. We're looking for peace. We're looking to find a way out. We know that the answer lies here. We do, deep down inside. And so we look for ways to have that imprinted in us. And this is one of them. So Veda asked to interview me about, I guess it was about 3 years ago, as part of the series she was doing on the secret intelligence of water. And so if you want a recording of more or less what I'm saying here tonight, you can find it. In this case, the link given is a link to my YouTube page. Just my name, ronlaplace.com. And on that page, I've added this interview. So if you want to review anything about this talk, you can find it there. When we activate from the heart, well, many of you, I'm sure, have heard of heart math. And this image is actually a heart math image. What it's showing is that there are toroidal fields that are emitted from the heart. But notice how there isn't just one field. There's one that's inside the other. And just as this image is demonstrating, the heart is emitting a field from the tiny space and a field from the sacred space. In that book, if you decide to read it, you'll find a very clear explanation of why there are two. And they're real. This field is measurable already. It is absolutely measurable. And it can be expanded or contracted at will. And the expansion, whenever two or more of you are gathered in my name, there is love. That's all it takes to expand the field. And any three can create a field that is infinite in expansion. That's all it takes. The number 3 is very powerful in creation. Now, I was going to play a song in a video by Leonard Cohen at this time, but 3 weeks ago, or whatever it was, I heard True's song, and I knew that that's how we needed to close this. So I would like True to give us this incredible song, An Angel Speaks. And then afterward, I'd like to do questions. This is an image of a workshop that I give, and others. And it is my intention that if the seed that I am planting here tonight, if it takes root, I would like to come back in April and give this workshop. And for those who want to go deeper into this information and discover the tiny space, and perhaps many of you already have, but to share that, then I would love to do that. Okay.